sound.
Hare Krishna, somebody can please lead the invocation prayers.
Yes, Prabhuji. I do, Prabhuji.
Go ahead.
Om Jnanativrandasya Jnananjalashalakaya Satguru Anminitamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovisyam Sthabinam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadantika Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Sri Rupam Sagrajadam Sargana Raghunanta Vitam Chajivam Satvaitam Savadudam Parijana Sakitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sargana Lalita Sri Vijankara Vitam Cha E Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastude तप्त कांचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी शबानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धु एव च पतितानां पावनेषु वैष्णव्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming. So today, first we will discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23. It's a pretty straightforward chapter. And we actually will finish this unit number 18 today. And chapter number 24 is a stand-alone chapter without being connected in any units. Chapter 24 is Rudra Gita. It's a pretty long chapter. We will cover chapter 24 in 2 or 3 classes. And because we're doing the revisions in 2 classes, so to make it efficient use of the time in the 2 classes, what we'll do is we will first also discuss chapter 24, and the revision will do unit 18 revision of all the chapters in unit 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, plus 24 chapter, the standalone chapter we will discuss or revise together with unit 18. So let's first discuss Canto 4, Chapter 23. Uncle has a question.
Prabhuji, today we are supposed to have chapter 23, am I right?
Yeah, today we are discussing 23.
Okay.
Yeah,
You were talking 24, that's what I was saying.
So what I'm explaining is today we will finish 23 and today we'll finish this unit number 18.
Yeah, got it.
Instead of revising unit 18, we will first discuss the standalone unit, the standalone chapter 24.
Okay.
In the next 2, maybe 3 classes, a pretty long chapter. And
Understood,
then
Prabhuji.
the revision will be for unit 18 chapters 20 to 23 plus the 24 chapter. The revision will probably happen 10th of January and 17th of January, maybe 17th and 24th, depending on how long it takes to cover chapter 24. It's a pretty long, pretty detailed chapter on Rudra Gita. All right. So we'll first discuss chapter 23. Straightforward, we'll finish, and then towards the end, We will pause for striking points and inquiries from previous class. So the context or the recap is that Sanat Kumara described Mishra Bhakti and advised that sense gratification is the cause of destruction of self. Therefore, the solution is hearing Krishna Katha is the process to get attached to the Lord and to get detached from matter. Chapter 23 is titled Prithu Maharaj's Going Back Home. It is divided into 4 parts. Part 1 is verses 1 to 18. Prithu Maharaj's Vanaprastha life, austerities, and departure. Part 2 is verses 19 to 22. Archie performs Prithu Maharaj's funeral rites and enters its flames. Part 3, verses 23 to 30. Demigods' wives praise Archie. Part 4, verses 31 to 39. Falak Shruti. So first is Prithu Maharaj's Vanaprastha life and severe austerities. Shivangi, verses 1 to 5 translations are straightforward verses.
Hare Krishna, text 1. At the last stage of his life, when Maharaja Prithu saw himself getting old, that great soul who was king of the world divided whatever opulence he had accumulated amongst all kinds of living entities, moving and non-moving. He arranged pensions for everyone according to religious principles, and after executing the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in complete coordination with him, he dedicated his sons unto the earth, which were considered to be his daughter. Then Maharaja Prithu left the presence of his citizens, who were almost lamenting and crying from feeling separation from the king, and went to the forest alone with his wife to perform austerities. Text 4. After retiring from family life, Maharaja Prithu strictly followed the regulations of retired life and underwent severe austerities in the forest. He engaged in these activities as seriously as he had formerly engaged in leading the government and conquering everyone. Text 5. In the Tapovana, Maharaja Prithu sometimes ate the trunks and roots of trees, sometimes he ate fruit and dried leaves, and for some weeks he drank only water. Finally, he lived simply by breathing air. Hare Krishna.
So straightforward Vanaprastha life and performing austerities. This discussion about austerities will come up in upcoming verse. In verse number 5 purport, Srila Prabhupada describes why a Krishna conscious person does not need to go to forest. So yes, you can continue Vanaprastha life, but you don't need to go to forest. Yeah, the purpose of Vanaprastha life is to spend more time on spirituality. So you can live in the cities, the jungle of concrete, and spend more time on spirituality. And we have discussed in other classes that normally devotees in Vanaprastha want to go to forest to meet saintly people, but today there are not that many forests left. And even in the forest, saintly people are not there. Saintly people are in temples. So you don't need to go to forest for your vanaprastha life. Just increase your spirituality. And we also discussed in Canto 1 the Yudhishthir Maharaj's discussion that one should make a plan for vanaprastha life on the day of getting married, that how I will train my children and hand over the household affairs to the children so that at least the last 15-20 years of my life, I am able to spend more on Krishna conscious activities. Shivangi, verse number 5 purport.
Text by Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, yogis are advised to go to a secluded place in the forest and live alone in a sanctified spot there. But Prithu Maharaj's behavior, we can understand that when he went to the forest, he did not eat any cooked food sent from the city by some devotees or disciples. As soon as one takes a vow to live in the forest, he must simply eat roots, tree trunks, fruits, dried leaves, or whatever nature provides in that way. Prithu Maharaj strictly adopted these principles for living in the forest, and sometimes he ate nothing but dried leaves and drank nothing but a little water. Sometimes he lived on nothing but air, and sometimes he ate some fruit from the trees. In this way, he lived in the forest and underwent severe austerity, especially in regards to eating. In other words, overeating is not at all recommended for one who wants to progress in spiritual life. Sri Rupa Goswami also warns that too much eating and too much endeavor, atyahara prayasascha, are against the principles by which one can advance in spiritual life. It is also notable that according to the Vedic injunction, to live in the forest is to live in the mode of complete goodness, whereas to live in the city is to live in the mode of passion, and to live in a brothel or drinking house is to live in the mode of ignorance. However, to live in a temple is to live in Vaikuntha, which is transcendental to all the modes of material nature. This Krishna consciousness movement affords one the opportunity to live in the temple of the Lord, which is as good as Vaikuntha. Consequently, a Krishna conscious person does not need to go to the forest and artificially try to imitate Maharaja Prithu or the great sages and munis who used to live in the forest. Srila Rupa Goswami, after retiring from his minister's seat in the government, went to Vrindavana and lived beneath a tree like Maharaja Prithu. Since then, many people have gone to Vrindavana to imitate Rupa Goswami's behavior. Instead of advancing in spiritual life, many have fallen into material habits and even in Vrindavana have become victims of illicit sex, gambling, and intoxication. The Krishna consciousness movement has been introduced in the Western countries, but it is not possible for Westerners to go to the forest and practice the severe austerities which were ideally practiced by Prithu Maharaja or Rupa Goswami. However, Westerners or anyone else can follow in the footsteps of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura by living in a temple, which is transcendental to residence in a forest, and to vow to accept Krishna Prasada and nothing else, follow the regulated principles and chant 16 rounds daily of the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, one's spiritual life will never be disturbed.
The Prabhupada said Krishna conscious devotee does not need to go to forest and artificially try to imitate Prithu Maharaj. Rather, follow in the footsteps of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur by living in a temple, which is a transcendental place to the residents in forest. Just continue the vow to accept Krishna Prasad and nothing else. Follow regular principles. Chant at least 16 rounds of japa. And when it says to live in temple, does not mean you have to move to the temple. You can make your home as temple and you are 24 hours in Vaikuntha. Questions, comments, realizations?
Prabhuji, after reading this chapter 23, as I heard your discourse, which you kindly sent to us, even though we didn't participate for the past two months due to certain impediments, But by the mercy of the Lord, I could join back as per his desire. And we are very privileged to read, particularly this 23rd chapter in 4th canto. The reason being, it is very significant as per my realization and feelings. like Prithu Maharaj, because this ends in 23rd Prithu Maharaj going back to God's own home. And it is a wonderful chapter. That is my realization, Prabhuji.
Very good, and very good. You were doing your prescribed duties and then getting caught up on recording. So this is perfect balance, as well as you have correct realizations that how we should aim to spend more and more time on Krishna conscious activities. Very good. So now the purpose of Prithu Maharaj's severe austerities is to satisfy the Supreme Lord, as well as the result of austerities is described in upcoming verses. Is our dear Aditi able to read verses 6 to 10 translations?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I will read on. Following the principles of forest living and the footsteps of the great sages and munis, Prithu Maharaj accepted 5 kinds of heating processes during the summer season, exposed himself to torrents of rain in the rainy season, and in the winter stood in water up to his neck. He also used to simply lie down on the floor to sleep. Text 7. Maharaj Prithu underwent all these severe austerities in order to control his words and his senses, to refrain from discharging his semen, and to control the life air within his body. All this he did for the satisfaction of Vishnu. He had no other purpose. Text 8 translation. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control, he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. Text 9 translation. Thus, the best amongst human beings, Maharaj Prithu followed that path of spiritual advancement which was advised by Sanat Kumara. That is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Text 10. Maharaj Prithu thus engaged completely in devotional service, executing the rules and regulations strictly according to principles, 24 hours daily. Thus, his love and devotion unto Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna developed and became unflinching and fixed. Hare Krishna.
So the results of austerities are, first, that he gradually became steadfast. Second, he destroyed karma and became joyful. Third, he controlled his mind and senses. And fourth, he cut his bondage from this world. In verse number 7, Prabhupada explains that Krishna conscious devotee is most intelligent, because in Kali Yuga, it is not possible to undergo severe austerities. Some people, they follow some pseudo meditation process, but Krishna conscious devotee is simply engaged in Sankirtana Yajna. And then Prithu Maharaj gives up his body. Shalini, 11 to 18 translations are straightforward.
Hare Krishna, text 11. By regularly discharging devotional service, Prithu Maharaj became transcendental in mind and could therefore constantly think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because of this, he became completely detached and attained perfect knowledge by which he could transcend all doubt. Thus, he was freed from the clutches of false ego and the material conception of life. Text 12. When he became completely free from the conception of bodily life, Maharaja Prithu realized Lord Krishna sitting in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. Being thus able to get all the instructions from him, he gave up all other practices of yoga and jnana. He was not even interested in performing in the perfection of the yoga and jnana systems, for he thoroughly realized that devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and that unless the yogis and jnanis become attracted to Krishna Katha, narrations about Krishna, their illusions concerning existence can never be dispelled. Text 13. In due course of time, when Prithu Maharaj was to give up his body, he fixed his mind firmly upon the lotus feet of Krishna, and thus, completely situated on the Brahmabhuta platform, he gave up the material body. Text 14. When Maharaja Prithu practiced a particular yogic sitting posture, he blocked the door of his anus and with his ankles pressed his right and left calves and gradually raised his life air upward, passing it to the circle of his navel, up to the heart and throat, and finally pushed it upward to the central position between his two eyebrows. Text 15. In this way, Prithu Maharaj gradually raised his air of life up to the hole in his skull, whereupon he lost all desire for material existence. Gradually, he merged his air of life with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, and the fire within his body with the totality of fire. Text 16. In this way, according to the different positions of the various parts of the body, Prithu Maharaj merged the wholes of his senses with the sky, his bodily liquids such as blood and various secretions with the totality of water, and he merged earth with water, then water with fire, fire with air with sky, and so on. Text 17. He amalgamated the mind with the senses and the senses with the sense objects, according to their respective positions, and he also amalgamated the material ego with the total material energy, Mahatattva. Text 18. Prithu Maharaj then offered the total designation of the living entity unto the supreme controller of illusory energy. Being released from all the designations by which the living entity became entrapped, he became free by knowledge and renunciation and by the spiritual force of his devotional service. In this way, being situated in his original constitutional position of Krishna consciousness, he gave up this body as a Prabhu or controller of the senses. Hare Krishna.
Now, question is that Prithu Maharaj is Shakti Avesha avatar. He descended directly from Vaikuntha planet. He is eternally a pure devotee. Then why is Prithu Maharaj adopting this process of devotional service? Srila Prabhupada explains in verse number 11, we'll soon read, that Prithu Maharaj adopted the process of devotional service just to teach ordinary people in the world. And further, in verse number 11, you can assume it's a pretty important verse. Verse number 11 has multiple analogy. We'll only discuss one right now. One analogy says that if someone has a strong digestive power, he does not need to take any separate medication to digest. Similarly, the fire of devotional service is so strong that a devotee does not need to act separately to attain perfect knowledge or detachment from material attraction. These are byproducts, just as the digestion happens by itself. Shalini, verse 11 purport.
Hare Krishna. Text 11. In the Narad Pancharatra, devotional service to the Lord is likened unto a queen. When a queen gives an audience, many maidservants follow her. The maidservants of devotional service are material opulence, liberation, and mystic powers. The karmis are very much attached to material enjoyment. The jnanis are very anxious to become freed from material clutches. And the yogis are very fond of attaining the eight kinds of mystic perfection. From the Narad Panchatrika, Pancharatra, we understand that if one attains the stage of pure devotional service, he also attains all the opulences derived from fruitive activities, empiric philosophical speculation, and mystic yoga practice. Srila Bilvamangal Thakur therefore prayed in his Krishna Karnamrita, "My dear Lord, if I have unflinching devotion to you, you become manifest before me personally, and the results of fruitive activity and philosophical speculation, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, become like personal attendants and remain standing before me as if awaiting my order." The idea here is that the Gyanis, by the culture of Brahma Vidya, spiritual knowledge, struggle very hard to get out of the clutches of material nature, but a devotee, by the dint of his advancement in devotional service, automatically becomes detached from his material body. When the devotee's spiritual body begins to manifest, he actually enters into his activities in transcendental life. At present, we have contacted a material body, material mind, and material intelligence. But when we become free from these material conditions, our spiritual body, spiritual mind, and spiritual intelligence become manifest. In that transcendental state, a devotee attains all the benefits of karma, jnana, and yoga. Although he never engages in fruitive activities or empiric speculation to attain mystic powers, automatically mystic powers appear in his service. A devotee does not want any kind of material opulence, but such opulence appears before him automatically. He does not have to endeavor for it. Because of his devotional service, he automatically becomes Brahmabhuta. As stated before, this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14.26. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samatityetan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who is engaged in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Because of his regular discharge of devotional service, a devotee attains the transcendental stage of life. Since his mind is transcendently situated, he cannot think of anything but the lotus feet of the Lord. This is the meaning of the word samsmarana anupurtya. By constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord, the devotee immediately becomes situated in Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva refers to the platform which is above the modes of material nature, including the mode of goodness. In the material world, the mode of goodness is considered to be the representative of the highest perfection, but one has to transcend this mode and come to the stage of Shuddha Sattva, or pure goodness, where the three qualities of material nature cannot act. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives the following example. If one has strong digestive power, after eating, he automatically lights a fire within his stomach to digest everything and does not need to take medicine to aid his digestion. Similarly, the fire of devotional service is so strong that a devotee does not need to act separately to attain the perfect knowledge or detachment from material attractions. A jnani may become detached from material attractions by prolonged discussions on the subject of knowledge and may in this way finally come to the Brahmabhuta stage. But a devotee does not have to undergo so much trouble. By virtue of his devotional service, he attains the Brahmabhuta stage without a doubt. The yogis and jnanis are always doubtful about their constitutional position. Therefore, they mistakenly think of becoming one with the Supreme. However, a devotee's relationship with the Supreme becomes manifest beyond all doubt, and he immediately understands that his position is that of an eternal servant of the Lord. Jnanis and yogis without devotion may think themselves liberated, but actually their intelligence is not as pure as that of a devotee. In other words, the jnanis and yogis cannot become factually liberated unless they become elevated to the position of devotees. Aruya krichrena param padam tatha patanti adho nadrata yusmad angrahya. Bhagavatam 10.2.32. The Gyanis and Yogis may rise to the highest position, Brahman realization, but because of their lack of devotion unto the lotus feet of the Lord, they again fall down to the material nature. Therefore, Jnana and Yoga should not be accepted as the real processes for liberation. By discharging devotional service, Maharaja Prithu automatically transcended all these positions. Since Maharaja Prithu was a Satyaveksha incarnation of the Supreme Lord, he need not have to act in any way to attain liberation. He came from the Vaikuntha world or spiritual sky in order to execute the will of the Supreme Lord on earth. Consequently, he was to return home back to Godhead without having to execute jnana, yoga, or karma. Although Prithu Maharaj was eternally a pure devotee of the Lord, he nonetheless adopted the process of devotional service in order to teach people in general the proper process for executing the duties of life and ultimately returning home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Right, so we just read that Prithu Maharaj demonstrated the process of devotional service so as to teach ordinary people like me. The analogy of the digestive fire in the body explains that the fire of devotional service is so strong that a devotee does not need to act separately to attain perfect knowledge or detachment from material attractions. A jnani may become detached from material attractions and finally even come to the Brahmabhuta stage but through a laborious process. But a devotee does not have to undergo so much trouble. He still attains much more than what the jnani attain. The jnanis and yogis may think themselves to be liberated, but actually their intelligence is not so pure as that of a devotee. The jnanis, yogis may rise to the platform of Brahman realization, but because of lack of devotion unto the lotus feet of the Lord, they again fall down to material nature. In verse number 15 purport, Prabhupada also explains the same point, that those who attain Brahman effulgence have a 99.9% chance of falling down, because in the absence of varieties of enjoyment, the spirit soul gradually feels an attraction to enjoy life. And not having any information of Krishna Loka or Vaikuntha Loka, he naturally falls down to material activities in order to enjoy material varieties. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. While reading the purport, I was just, what was coming to my mind was a yoga ladder, Prabhu. How we did the yoga ladder where different levels and, how different levels, Prabhu, different levels of realization and what gets added when, and then bhakti is superior, and that's what came to my mind.
Very good, very good. Correct point. Good remembrance. Uncle.
Prabhuji, this Suddha Sattva, pure goodness, is a refinement of all the three ignorance, passion, and goodness, correct?
Shuddha Sattva is the mode of transcendence, is above. It's not refinement, it's above all three material modes.
Thank you.
So now part 2, verses 19 to 22. Archie performs Prithu Maharaj's funeral rites and enters its flames. Pretty straightforward verses. For the Jija 19 to 22 translations.
Text 19. The queen, the wife of Prabhu Prithu Maharaj, whose name was Archie, followed her husband into the forest. Since she was a queen, her body was very delicate. Although she did not deserve to live in the forest, she voluntarily touched her lotus feet to the ground. Text 20. Although she was not accustomed to such difficulties, Queen Archie followed her husband in the regulative principles of living in the forest like great sages. She lay down on the ground and ate only fruits, flowers, and leaves, and because she was not fit for these activities, she became frail and thin. Yet, because of the pleasure she derived in serving her husband, she did not feel any difficulties. Text 21. After, when Queen Archis saw that her husband, who had been so merciful to her and the earth, no longer showed symptoms of life, she lamented for a little while and then built a fiery fire on top of a hill and placed the body of her husband on it. Text 22. After this, the queen executed the necessary funerary functions and offered oblations of water. After bathing in the river, she offered obeisances to various demigods situated in the sky in the different planetary systems. She then circumambulated the fire and, while thinking of the lotus feet of her husband, entered its flames. Hare Krishna.
In verse number 18, Prabhupada explains the austerities of the wife of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Vishnu Priya Devi's austerities. Prabhupada explains that woman's duty or religious principle is to serve her husband in all conditions. We have discussed this previously in Canto 3, how Devahuti also served the husband and attained the same destination. Parvati also served Shiva. Here, Archie is also serving Prithu Maharaj. So when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, his wife, Vishnu Priya Devidasi, although only 16 years old, also took the vow of austerity due to her husband's leaving home. She chanted on her beads, and after finishing one round of japa, she collected 1 grain of rice. In this way, as many rounds as she chanted, she would receive the same number of rice grains and then cook and take prasadam. This is called austerity. Questions, comments, realizations? So now part 3, verses 23 to 30, the demigods' wives, they praise Archie. Uncle will read 23 to 26 translations are straightforward.
Hare Krishna. Text 23. After observing this brave act performed by the chaste wife Archie, the wife of the great King Prithu, many thousands of wives of the demigods, along with their husbands, offered prayers to the queen, for they were very much satisfied. Text 24. At the time, the demigods were situated on the top of Mandara hill, and all their wives began to shower flowers on the funeral pyre and began to talk amongst themselves as follows. Text 25. The wives of the demigods said, all glories to Queen Archie. We can see that this queen of the great King Prithu, the emperor of all the kings of the world, served her husband with mind, speech, and body, exactly as the goddess of fortune served the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yagnesha or Vishnu. Text 26. The wives of the demigods continued. Just to see how this chaste lady, Archie, by dint of her inconceivable pious activities, is still following her husband upward, as far as we can see. Text 27. In
26.
this
Okay,
material,
hold on. In verse number 26, describes this inconceivable activities of Maharaj Prathu and his wife Archie. Uncle, read 26 purport.
26 purport. Both Prindu Maharaja's airplane and the airplane carrying Queen Archie were passing out of the vision of the ladies of the higher planetary systems. These ladies were simply astonished to see how Prithu Maharaja and his wife achieved such an exalted position, although they were the wives of the denizens of the higher planetary system, and Prithu Maharaja was an inhabitant of an inferior planetary system, the air. The king, along with his wife, passed beyond the realms of the demigods and went upward to Vaikuntha Loka. The word Urdhvam, Urdhvam, upward, is significant here. For ladies speaking were from the higher planetary system, which includes the moon, sun, and Venus, up into Brahmaloka, or the highest planet. Beyond Brahmaloka is the spiritual sky. In that spiritual sky, there are innumerable Vaikuntha Lokas. Thus, the word Urdhvam indicates that Vaikuntha planets are beyond or above these material planets. And it was to these Vaikuntha planets that Prithu Maharaja and his wife were going. This also indicates that when Prithu Maharaja and his wife Archie abandoned their material bodies in the material fire, they immediately developed their spiritual bodies and entered into spiritual airplanes, which could penetrate the material elements and reach the spiritual sky. Since they were carried by two separate planes, it may be concluded that even after being burned in the funeral pyre, they remained separate, individual persons. In other words, they never lost their identity or became void, as imagined by the impersonalists. The ladies in the higher planetary system were capable of seeing both the both downward and upward. When they looked down, they could see the body of Prithu Maharaja was being burned, and his wife, Archie, was entering into the fire. When they looked upward, they could see how they were being carried into two airplanes to Vaikuntha Loka. All of this is possible by simply Vayana, Dharmana, inconceivable activity. Prithu Maharaja was a pure devotee, and his wife, Queen Archie, simply followed her husband. Thus, they can both be considered pure devotees, and thus they are capable of performing inconceivable activities. Such activities are not possible for ordinary men. Indeed, ordinary men cannot even take to the devotional service of the Lord, nor can ordinary women maintain such vows of chastity and follow their husbands in all respects. A woman does not need to attain high qualifications, but if she simply follows the footsteps of her husband, who must be a devotee, then both husband and wife attain liberation and are promoted to Vaikuntha Loka. This is evinced by the inconceivable activities of Maharaja Prithu and his wife. I will continue with the 26.
So, inconceivable activities. The ladies in the higher planetary system, when they looked down, they could see the body of Prithu Maharaj being burned and that of his wife Archie was entering into the fire. And when they looked upward, they could see how they were being carried in two airplanes to Vaikuntha Loka. All this is inconceivable. Prabhupada explains that a woman does not need to attain high qualifications. But if a woman simply follows in the footsteps of her devotee husband, then both husband and wife attain same liberation and are promoted to the same Vaikuntha lokas. And this is shown by the inconceivable activities of Prithu Maharaj and his wife Archi. Mother Chandra Aunty will read 27 to 30 translations are straightforward.
Text 27. In this material world, every human being has a short span of life. But those who are engaged in devotional service go back home, back to Godhead, for they are actually on the path of liberation. For such person, there is nothing which is not available. Text 28. Any person who engage himself within this material world in performing activities that necessitate great struggle and who, after obtaining a human form of life, which is a chance to attain liberation from miseries, undertakes the difficult task of fruitive activities, must be considered to be cheated and envious of his own self. Text 29. The great sage Maitreya continued speaking. My dear Vidura, when the wives of the denizen of heaven were thus talking amongst themselves, Queen Archie reached the planet with her husband, Maharaja Prithu, the topmost self-realized soul, had attained. Text 30. Maitreya continued, the greatest of all devotees, Maharaja Prithu, was very powerful and his character was liberal, magnificent, and magnanimous. Thus, I have described him to you as far as possible.
So, in verse number 29, Srila Prabhupada describes that in Vaikuntha planets, there are husbands and wives, but there is no question of giving birth to children or having sex. In Vaikuntha planets, both husbands and wives are extraordinarily beautiful and they are attracted to one another, but they do not enjoy sex life. They consider sex life not to be very relishable because both husband and wife are always absorbed in Krishna consciousness and in glorifying and chanting the glories of the Lord. The last few verses are the Falashruti. So part 4 verses 31 to 39, title is Falashruti. Falashruti is that hearing and chanting about Prithu Maharaj, one increases devotion, faith, and attraction to Lord's lotus feet. Verse number 31 describes that hearing pastimes of Vaishnava is same as hearing about Vishnu. There is no duality between Vishnu and Vaishnava. And this is called Advaya Jnana. A Vaishnava is as important as Lord Vishnu. Abhishek Prabhu, 31 translation and purport.
Hi. Text 31 translation. Any person who describes the great characteristics of King Prithu with faith and determination, whether he reads or hears of them himself, or helps others to hear of them, is certain to attain the very planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. In other words, such a person also returns home to the Vaikuntha planet, back to Godhead purport. In the execution of devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu is especially stressed. This means that bhakti or devotional service begins by hearing and chanting about Vishnu. When we speak of Vishnu, we also refer to that which relates to Vishnu. In the Shiva Puran, Lord Shiva recommends Vishnu worship to the topmost worship. And better than Vishnu worship is worship of the Vaishnava or anything that is related to Vishnu. The fact is explained herein that hearing and chanting about a Vaishnava is as good as hearing and chanting about Vishnu. For Maitreya has explained that anyone who hears about Prithu Maharaj with attention also attains the planet which Maharaj Prithu attained. There is no duality between Vishnu and the Vaishnava, and this is called Advaya Jnana. A Vaishnava is as important as Vishnu, and therefore Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote in his Guru Ashtakam, Sakshat Dharitvena Samasta Shastrer Uktas Tatha Bhavyata Eva Sadbhi Kintu Prabhor Yaha Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. The spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and is followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari. The Supreme Vaishnava is the spiritual master, and he is non-different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said that sometimes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to chant the names of the gopis. Some of the Lord's students tried to advise him to chant the name of Krishna instead. But upon hearing this, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very angry with his students. The controversy on this subject reached a point that after this incident, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu decided to take sannyas because he was not taken very seriously in his Grihastha ashram. The point is that since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanted the names of gopis, worship of the gopis or the devotees of the Lord is as good as devotional service rendered directly to the Lord. It is also stated by the Lord himself that devotional service to his devotees is better than service offered directly to him. Sometimes the Sahajya class of devotees are interested only in Krishna's personal pastimes to the exclusion of the activities of devotees. This type of devotee is not on a very high level. One who sees the devotee and the Lord on the same level has further progressed.
So if you read Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita, is same as reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Questions, comments, realizations? Kalyani wants to read 32 to 39. Translations are straightforward. Otherwise, Gopal Prabhu will read.
Prabhuji,
Yeah.
am I audible?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Uncle. We can hear you.
There is some connectivity. Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So one day Guru Shri Charana Arvindam.
Yeah.
Would you please explain those
I
lines?
offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master. Like the last line, if you see the below the Sanskrit, the last line says, therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of spiritual master, who's bona fide representative of Sri Hari. So this Guru Astaka, it's a 8 stanza prayer which devotees chant 4:30 Mangalarti time. This is one of the prayer. Sakshat dharitvena samasta shastre uktasta tatta bhavyat sadvi kintu prabhurya priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam. So that Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam is, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master.
Thank you, Guruji.
Gopal, 32 to 39 translations are straightforward.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Text 32 translation. If one hears of the characteristics of Prithu Maharaj and is a Brahmana, he becomes perfectly qualified with Brahmanical powers. If he is a Kshatriya, he becomes a king of the world. If he is a Vaishya, he becomes a master of other Vaishyas and many animals. And if he is Sudra, he becomes the topmost devotee. Text 33. It does not matter whether one is a man or woman. Anyone who, with great respect, hears this narration of Maharaja Prithu will become the father of many children if he is without children, and will become the richest of men if he is without money. Text 34. Also, one who hears this narration 3 times will become very reputable if he is not recognized in society, and he will become a great scholar if he is illiterate. In other words, hearing of the narrations of Prithu Maharaja is so auspicious that it drives away all bad luck. Text 35. By hearing the narration of Prithu Maharaja, one can become great, increase his duration of life, gain promotion to the heavenly planets, and counteract the contaminations of this age of Kali. In addition, one can promote the causes of religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Therefore, from all sides, it is advisable for a materialistic person who is interested in such things to read and hear the narrations of the life and character of Prithu Maharaja. Text 36. If a king who is desirous of attaining victory and ruling power chants the narration of Prithu Maharaja 3 times before going forth on his chariot, all subordinate kings will automatically render all kinds of taxes unto him, as they rendered them unto Maharaja Prithu, simply upon his order. Text 37. A pure devotee who is executing the different processes of devotional service may be situated in the transcendental position, being completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness, but even he, while discharging devotional service, must hear, read, and induce others to hear about the character and life of Prithu Maharaj. Text 38. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, I have, as far as possible, spoken the narrations about Prithu Maharaja, which enrich one's devotional attitude. Whoever takes advantage of these benefits also goes back home, back to Godhead, like Maharaja Prithu. Text 39. Whoever with great reverence and adoration regularly reads, chants, and describes the history of Maharaja Prithu's activities will certainly increase unflinching faith and attraction for the lotus feet of the Lord. The Lord's lotus feet are the boat by which one can cross the ocean of nations. Hare Krishna.
Thus ends the Bhaktivinoda purports of 4th canto, 23rd chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Maharaj Prithu's Going Back Home. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Like as it was previously pointed out, that it seemed that Prithu Maharaj was initially practicing some kind of like self-restraint or maybe parts of Ashtanga Yoga, and then he moved on to practice Bhakti Yoga. So maybe this is a good example of a devotee who shows that progression.
Yeah, you are correct. So, I mean, the yoga is different, where so in Satyug, Ashtanga Yoga is possible. So, they are performing Ashtanga Yoga to restrict body, but they are then also adding bhakti. Only then they attain Bhagwan realization. Correct point. Very good.
And so there are 2 questions. One is that maybe we have discussed this before, but how does this practicing of restraints, like does it become pleasing to the Lord in that time? Like in this time, even if we do some physical austerity, like if we get up early in the morning, the purpose is to go to Mangalarti. So it's directly connected to us, the devotional service.
Yeah,
But there,
the austerities, you are correct. So in today's time, you do wake up early, you chant, and you do devotionals. So these are austerities for Kali Yuga. And these are what satisfies the Lord because you are doing devotional services. So back then, the austerities was different. The point is about doing austerities that satisfies the Lord. That if I'm not doing austerities, I'm in bodily concept of life. I want to enjoy this, I want to enjoy that. Once you are out of bodily concept of life is when you are doing austerities. This is what pleases the Lord. Abhishek.
thank you, Prabhuji. And the last question is, when this Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra point was being discussed, the Falashruti for them, like for others, it was like their Varnik duties become perfect, it seemed to me. But when it comes to Shudra, it says they become topmost devotee. So it's just some like this is more of a spiritual benefit, and for others, it's more of a material benefit, it seems. If you can.
So everybody attains the same. It's not that the Brahmana and Kshatriya, Vaishya do not attain spirituality. Anyone who hears attains everything. Yeah, the example is also given that, say, a Kshatriya who is more interested in opulences, yeah, he attains opulences also. Right? The Shudra is more interested in purifying. So the example is given. It's not saying that the Brahmana or Kshatriya or Vaishya will not attain spirituality. Abhishek.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Very good.
Prithu Maharaj avatar, that is Shakti is an incarnation of Supreme Lord.
Yeah.
This is one more avatar like Krishna avatar, Rama avatar. There is the message is dharma and chanting of glories of the Lord. That is what I perceive.
Yeah, so there are many incarnations. Shakti Vaishya avatar is one category of incarnations, and there are many personalities within this category of Shakti Vaishya avatar, including Srila Prabhupada is also Shakti Vaishya avatar, just not at the Vishnu Tattva level. Prithu Maharaj is at the, yeah, also does describe that although he is Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is still is considered as Shakti Vaishya avatar, but everybody during his coronation went on to glorify him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada is also Shakti Vaishya avatar, but at the Jiva Tattva level. So, yes, the teachings we discussed in one of the verse today, that Prithu Maharaj is executing these severe austerities, this devotional service, although he does not need to, he's just executing to teach to rest of the world.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
All right, spiritual endeavor questions. Number 1, explain why a Krishna conscious devotee does not need to go to the forest. Comes from verse number 5. Number 2, explain the term Advayaya Jnana. from number 31. Number 3 is analogy from 4.23.11 verse. If one has strong digestive power, after eating, he automatically lights fire within his stomach to digest everything and does not need to take separate medicine to aid his digestion. Similarly, the fire of devotional service is so strong that a devotee does not need to act separately to attain perfect knowledge or detachment from material attractions. Fourth, for next class, read Canto 4, Chapter 24. Chapter 24 is on Rudra Gita. It's a very long chapter. We'll cover this chapter 24 in 2 to 3 classes. So you can read some portion. We won't cover the entire. You can read the full. It doesn't hurt you. So as I explained at the start, that with chapter 23 completion, we have completed this unit number 18. And chapter number 24 is a stand-alone chapter, is not in any of the units. So for efficient use of our time for revision, we will first cover this stand-alone chapter 24 and then revise unit 18 chapters 20, 21, 22, 23. Plus we will also revise chapter 24 together with the unit 18 chapters. So that revision will be January 10th and 17th or January 17th and 24th, depending on how we progress on discussing chapter 24. Questions, comments, realizations?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One question from like how initially when Prithu Maharaj this section was discussed, there was one incident when like people predict what is going to happen in future of Prithu Maharaj, like Indra will steal his horses, and then so how does, like, he already knows what is going to come in future. Does this not affect how he's going to behave? Because like Indra is going to steal his, he knows that it is going to happen and he is doing the yagya. But he's still very happy when Indra comes and asks forgiveness.
So we have discussed this before. I mean, Shalini asked a similar question about Prithu Maharaj, that, and we discussed that Krishna uses his pure devotees as well as himself to teach us so many things, like the Pandavas, Draupadi, Krishna himself. There are so many personalities Krishna uses to teach us. And Prithu Maharaj is also teaching us that forgiveness this is the quality we need to develop. That, and he gave an example, or there's a verse which describes that if you don't forgive, then whatever endeavor you did on the path of spirituality is a waste of time. So we also read even today one of the verse that Prithu Maharaj does not need to go through any of these processes. He is already coming from Vaikuntha and he is destined to go back, but he is teaching to us how to execute. And when we come to Canto 10, the Rukmani Devi chapters, there are 3 or 4 chapters around chapter 54. Krishna himself, so Prithu Maharaj is an incarnation, but there Krishna himself, he wakes up early in the morning to meditate. And in the purport, Prabhupada explains that one should not become accustomed to sleeping on a comfortable bed. One should not become accustomed to the association of beautiful wife, rather should focus on spirituality. And Krishna himself is teaching. Krishna does not need to meditate. Of course, that point is also described. There are many points that Krishna does not need to meditate upon anything except himself. But he is teaching. So all these are for our learnings. Abhishek, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So we only have about 3 minutes left. And ask any questions. We won't be able to discuss the questions.
Prabhuji,
From...
can you tell us the question number 1 once again, please?
Okay, question number 1 is explain why a Krishna conscious devotee does not need to go to the forest. From verse number 5.
Thank you.
We won't be able to discuss anything more. If you have any questions, you can ask. We only have about 2 minutes left for today.
Prabhuji, I just wanted to know, Prabhuji, last class you said we have to have Shiksha Guru. So how to choose a Shiksha Guru?
Diksha Guru, not Siksha Guru. Diksha
Yeah,
Guru. We need,
Diksha, sorry,
yeah, we need an initiating spiritual master. So the process for that is you first get a spiritual mentor. And
how to get Prabhu? How do you know who is my mentor?
For the Toronto Temple on the website, there is a list of spiritual mentors, although that list is not complete, but I can guide you to a particular spiritual mentor, and that spiritual mentor will then further help you to choose which spiritual master is appropriate for you. That's one of the key role of the spiritual mentor. So you can connect with me offline.
Okay.
And I can describe that which spiritual mentor is appropriate for you.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Right. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna,
you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.